Recording.
Right.
Oh, hello, and welcome to another Zoom episode in quarantine. Tonight we're hanging out with Jon Fisher, photographer, artist extraordinaire.
Teacher.
Welcome, Jon.
And a teacher.
And a teacher. Well, yeah, okay. And that too. So welcome to our quarantine episode number, whatever it is.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's a new venue for me, as to many people. But
I think it's new for everyone being locked in. We're like in house arrest now.
Yeah. It's our new reality, and I wouldn't mind it if I saw a light at the end of the tunnel, but not yet. Jeez.
So, can we start with the beginning? How'd you get involved in photography and art in general?
Oh, is this like an all-nighter?
No, it doesn't have to be. We don't have any time limits, but you don't have to go in when I was one, my diaper looked like a Rorschach test, so I got started.
It's a very simple kind of an answer. When I was in high school, I remember probably around junior year, people were starting to make decisions about colleges and stuff, and I'm like, what the heck? All I could think of is like putting on a suit and tie and sitting in a cubicle, and I thought, I can't do that. And I had gotten interested in photography. My father was in the commercial art as a commercial artist, an art director. And so he kind of brought me to some photo shoots here and there and encouraged, my artistic side. I was interested in the arts and ceramics. And it was in the early 70s. And that was when photography was really starting to boom, and high schools were putting in dark rooms and all that stuff. And I basically got interested in that, and I thought, that would be a great career. And I had a really, really wonderful teacher named Glenn Swain, who was so encouraging. So between my father's encouragement and his encouragement, our high school did our own yearbook. We had a photography staff. He put me on the staff and assigned me as I was probably a sophomore or something like that, to take pictures of seniors. All of the photographers had to take pictures of seniors for their senior portraits, and they could tell you kind of their ideas, where they wanted to get it done and all that. And I was kind of a shy guy. And it was just a great experience to meet people who normally I wouldn't, or maybe wouldn't even talk to me. And I had a natural kind of a feeling for, the camera for some reason, and just took it from there. When it was time to make a decision for college, my father had gone to the Philadelphia College of Art. We looked at some other schools, but I thought, that's far enough away and close enough, and I liked it, went there, and I guess the rest is history. It was like a big extension of the high school art school, really. There was nothing, no real professional training or anything like that. At the time, it is now called the University of the Arts. It was a very small school back then. Now it incorporates music and dance and all that, but back then it was all a two-dimensional or three-dimensional art only school. And, it was really a great place to hone your raw creativity. And then after that, I knew I was coming to New York, and I started working as an assistant for Arnold Newman, who was a very renowned portrait photographer, kind of one of the old masters. So that was really just an amazing experience. I kind of stumbled into it. I mean, I just called, hundreds of photographers. I he picked up the phone and said, "Send me your resume." I slid it under his door that day on East 67th Street, and he set up an interview, and that was that. I all of a sudden I was working with one of the world-renowned masters of photography as one of two assistants, photographing portraits of very important people, and it was really a great foot in the door to the whole industry.
We see Buster in the back there. Hello, Buster.
Yeah, he'll be moving in and out.
No. You can leave him. I love Buster.
No, he's gonna bark to come in and bark.
That's
to go
okay.
out. Yeah, that's a great shot of him, though.
It is, but Buster's awesome. He's getting old now, but he's an awesome dog.
I know. Aren't we all?
Well, yes. So, did you do a lot of portraits before you worked for Newman, or no?
No. Well, yes, I did. Actually, what I did was I transitioned from the senior portraits to we had to do faculty portraits and staff. And I remember one of my favorite portraits back in high school was putting the custodial staff together, a group shot of them on the loading dock. And it was a very real picture, I remember, and I really loved doing that. And when I got to Philadelphia College of Art, I really got interested in street photography. Diane Arbus was one of the great influences. So many people around that time in the early 70s or whatever really gravitated to looking at the work she was doing because it was so unusual. It was a time when photography was very looked at as, glamour and elegance and all that. And she did quite the opposite. She took it right out of photography and photographed, the salt of the earth, the disenfranchised, the people on the fringes. And that really interested me. And so I walked around Philly, and, again, the camera became like a real key or door opener for me because I was meeting people that I never would have met without having the purpose of wanting to take their portrait. And a lot of people opened up to you. People of all kinds opened up, and I was really interested in people. And really, sometimes really edgy, fringy people and all that. There were street hustlers in Philly. There was revolutionary people. I ran into these people one day walking in North Philly on a stoop of a house, and they all had kind of dreadlocks. And I thought, this is an interesting group of people. And I started talking to them, and they were introducing themselves. All their last names was Africa. And these were the Move people. I don't know if you recall who they were, but they were these revolutionaries who were kind of holed up in this house. They were reputed to be highly armed. So there was a standoff going on with them and the police. And one of them said, yeah, look in the window across the street. And sure enough, there was a guy sitting there with binoculars. He said, look at the car across the street. And there was someone parked in the car. They said, yeah, we're kind of stuck here. And people drop off food and this and that and the other thing. And would you mind taking a couple rolls of film of ours and having them developed for us? And I said, sure. And I took them and I shot some pictures of them. And it was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And wasn't but, a few months later that the police got kind of tired of the standoff, and they brought bulldozers in for a few days to stand close to them and warn them and get them out of there. And eventually it ended up with helicopters sending in some kind of concussion grenades that caught the house on fire and lit the whole neighborhood on fire, and lots of people were killed and crazy stuff.
Like a preview of Waco.
It really was. It really was.
I remember that story.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I went into, met some people, and they invited me to a nursing home, and I took these really kind of interesting pictures of a dance during Valentine's Day where people were wearing kind of some costumes and stuff, and it was very surreal, and it was beautiful. Um, and yeah, so I was shooting really street photography and portraiture in the Diane Arbus kind of a vein as the kickoff to I guess my more professional photography.
That was all natural light, I would imagine. Most street
Yes.
photography.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
I
how
got
was that different
Rolly.
when you started working for Newman Studio? How different was that going from natural light and then learning the studio lighting?
Very different. One of the things that I really took out of working with him was the mastery of lighting. And what was different about him was that, everybody was using strobes, but Arnold Newman was an old school master, and he used tungsten lighting, hot lights.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of tungsten lights. We used to go on location with cases and cases and cases. He was a tyrannical maniac to work for. He made the first assistant cry on many occasions he would like blame you if something went wrong or this wasn't right. He was just very, very emotional, kind of hysterical kind of a guy. And one of the other things I learned besides lighting from him was just about how, an artist's personality comes through in their work. And if you look at Arnold Newman's work, the subjects look very intense because of Newman's intensity. He brought that out, his sense of, very traditional design, and his personality, made some really intense portraiture. But back to the lighting, he was just a master, and we'd set up all these tungsten lights before the subject would, be anywhere, around. And as the assistants, we would, be the subjects of the lighting. We'd light the room up. He would point and say, give me an inky dink here and a spot there and this and that and the other thing there. His lighting was really composed of a lot of pinpoint lights called inky dinks, these little spotlights. That was most of his lighting. He'd use umbrellas and things like that and washes here and there. But it was very fine-tuned pinpoints of light. And that was really a great thing to experience and learn from him.
Did he diffuse the inkies, or did he just use them raw?
Pretty much raw. Yeah, those were just like little accents that would, the diffusion or the fill would be created by, he'd put up another light to open up the lighting somehow. Yeah. So we did a lot of annual reports, a lot of private portraits. I was, privileged to be on a shoot where we went and photographed Henri Cartier, one of the great street photographers. Really, they say that he was the guy that coined the term street photography way back in, oh my God, like the 1950s, 40s, 50s. He was photographing in Eastern Europe. And I always loved his work, so whimsical, the way he would, shoot from different angles and perspectives, and very experimental with the process. And we went to his apartment overlooking Washington Square Park and, photographed him. He was at the time playing with little kind of glass objects on his windowsill, photographing towards Washington Square Park. Once in a while, he'd get a commercial shoot, and it was really kind of funny because, again, Newman didn't use strobes, so we did a shoot for, I believe it was like Sheraton Hotels, where we had a model walking across the lobby, and she had to pretend to be walking because she had to be perfectly still. It was very awkward, you know. But the art directors would hire just to have the chance to work with this guy, you know. So that was really something else.
Well, that was, I guess, stroke of luck too, because what if you didn't make that phone call?
Oh, it was completely, but I don't know. Somehow or another, I gravitate or end up finding the right place to be or whatever all throughout my career, somehow or another. So it was destiny somehow. I don't know what to say. If I didn't, I don't know. But it was definitely something to, keep in, inside the experience for forever. I was only there for like 3 months because he went and started a book and went off to England. And after that, I kind of freelanced. I said, I don't know exactly what I want to do. So I freelanced with food photographers, corporate photographers, fashion photographers, the whole deal. And you know what? I learned so much about every aspect of the business. That's what makes me a great teacher. No. Part of my problem in the commercial career that I had was that I wasn't as focused. And the way you make it big, theoretically, or from my experience of what I've seen in almost anything, is you really specialize in one thing. You are the one they think of doing that, and they call you for it. And my problem was I could do a lot of different things, and I guess I was a people person. I called what I did more or less lifestyle, advertising and this and that. But my downfall was that, I did a lot of different things. And I had, in the end, had a great career that brought me all over the world, brought me incredible experiences. It was a roller coaster ride. And roller coasters are fun, aren't they? Right?
Well, that's like every art career is a roller coaster, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The highs were incredible, the thrills. But man, there were times that scared the hell out of me, when you don't work for, the better part of a month or so. And the hardest part of that is, well, you're still paying all the bills, and you've got to be motivated to be creative and do work and stuff like that. And that's a tough deal,
Right. Were you getting, I know you have a lot of interests, and you said you'll be better off if you have focused on one specialty, but do you get bored too easily and then you just switch from one to the other, or it was just the opportunities came up?
It was trying to find, find the hook. What is it that's going to get you, and what my recommendation is to anybody going into a creative field is really just find what you love to do and what you're good at. And that's what you should do, and show only that and do only that. And that's where your hook will be bitten and will pull you through the ride. I was really more or less, it's a really competitive business, the commercial photography business. At the time when I started going into it, my father would introduce me, and he was a great supporter and all that. He would introduce me to different photographers, established photographers and all that. And this was back in like 1979, 80. And back then, after he was out of range, they would tell me, "Don't do this, son. Don't go into this field," because the heyday was really the 60s and 70s, and things tightened up, and the field got flooded after that. And then I won't even tell you what happened in the digital. You probably can imagine. No, the digital, just cut that in half. And there were more people trying to do a third of the amount of assignment work. But what you had to do was, reinvent yourself. And I started shooting stock photography even, and made some nice hefty sales here and there. But even that, the big agencies bought all the little agencies. And,
right. Well, that's gone now too. You really can't do much with stocks now.
Yeah, right. And then, people, you heard like, oh, somebody's putting out a disc with 300 images for $50. And people even started using them. Agencies started using some of these images because they thought it was like, cutting edge to use all rights imagery or something, crazy. So, you almost couldn't win. But, there's always, every kind of wave of change always creates new opportunities. And even with what's going on today, smart people are going to find new opportunities with, not just in the creative field, but, in any field. I think, we're going to see auto vending machines for food and things like that. I
think that's already happening.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, you gotta. One of the things that I noticed is that in being in any career, or being as old as we are, is that flexibility is so important. You got to move with the times. A lot of people don't like change, and they don't want to vary from what they're used to or what they've done, and that basically is is a dead end. You really have to change with the times. And one of the things that I did was, after a certain amount of time, I figured I've been there, I've done that. I'm only getting older. I was sending portfolios around. I was as much of a messenger as I was a photographer. And you do the little tests to see in your portfolio if somebody looked at it. They hold on to it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then you go and pick it up because you didn't want to pay $20, $25 for a local delivery each way. You look and you say, oh, nobody even looked at the freaking portfolio. So after a certain amount of time, I figured, I had a really rewarding career, and I thought, you know what, 9/11 happened. People are like, going to Vermont and shit. And I said, I need to do something different. And I thought, my daughter was going into elementary school. I went into the elementary school one day. I asked one of her teachers if I could sit in the class. And the teacher thought, did I do something wrong? I said,
scared him.
Yeah, I did. And so I went, and I was fascinated by what I saw in the idea of education. And I loved, the kids in the elementary school. They worship you, it was great. And I started bringing cameras to the school. I got my sub credentials. I was bringing cameras. So I was doing things with the teachers, with the students. Everybody loved it. The parents loved that. The projects that I could do with the kids, the teachers loved having me, the kids loved doing it. It was a great thing. And I thought, I'm going to be an elementary teacher. They need male elementary teachers, go to where, the needs are. And I was getting geared up for that. And before I knew it, somebody told me I was working, in the district, that the guy that was teaching photography at the high school was retiring, and I was kind of in the right place at the right time. I just had to sort of apologize for walking out of the high school after a couple of weeks when they asked me to be there as a substitute, because I wanted to go back to my elementary people and all that. So I was able to kind of trick them into hiring me, and I haven't looked back since. Hardest job, I've ever had, really. You every day you've got to be there and have something be on, have something going, and all that. But after a while, you develop a rhythm, and you can kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and make it interesting and creatively, and it's been really a great thing. I've really enjoyed it. Of course, there's annoying things and bureaucracy and things like that you have to deal with, but that's going to be in almost anything. So what do you
every job's got some of that.
Yeah, every job's got some of that.
But you didn't stop shooting; you still shoot. So that's a good point.
I tell you, the transition into teaching, I didn't stop shooting, but serious shooting stopped for a decade at least. It was an intensive time. I got my master's online. That took like a year and a half. My daughter, was young, raising her. And I was never, really, I went the commercial route. I wasn't a fine artist. So, although I did some traveling and creative stuff when I traveled here and there, I never really focused on creating a lot of bodies of work, just because I was really just flying by the seat of my pants trying to survive. It wasn't until really a few years ago that I really started creating, some work that I can kind of, be somewhat, proud of. And, so hopefully I can have a chance to show some of that.
Yeah, well, go ahead. I know you recently had a show in Mexico, right, in the gallery in Mexico. But you can, just show us whatever you want to show us.
All right, well.
As much as you want to share is fine with us.
Yeah, sure. No, and you just cut me off when you want me to. One of the things that, I started doing was, I did a lot of, I always enjoyed traveling, and the street photography and the people and all that stuff was something, that I love to do. Traditional black and white photography. And even when the digital revolution broke, I wasn't one to, I developed my Photoshop skills and all that, but I wasn't really wanting to do, surrealistic, wacky, use of filters and Photoshop. I've always been very kind of traditional kind of a person. So I'll show you some of the stuff I've done in Europe. Now, I guess I have to go to screen sharing. So let's see if I can
John, before you start, just if we get cut off, because Zoom sometimes cuts us off at 40, I'm gonna set up another meeting right after so we can continue.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if we get cut off, just wait for another email or text.
Oh, sure. Okay. Very good. All right. So I'm going to hit the share screen, but we'll be able to talk still anyway.
Well, it says about 9 minutes before it cuts us out. But when that happens, I'll just invite you to another meeting.
Yeah. Screen sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, you do. All right. Well, I'm going to take you to start us in some European stuff. And this is something that I did many years ago. And the reason why I'm showing it is because I'm in this picture. Can you find me?
Let's see. Where are you there?
Anyway.
I don't see you. Oh, you're in the mirror. I see.
There he is. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, there you are.
This picture was taken in Dijon, France, and I walked into this bar, and I saw that there was a back room. In the back room of this bar was this great game of cards going on, and I guess the camera, being the key for me, or the door opener, I had no problem with kind of, somehow or another, my personality, I don't know what it is. I'm like a chameleon. People everywhere I go in foreign countries stop me on the street and ask me directions, whatever. I blend in, or I look like I'm part of whatever it is. So I just stood there, and I raised my camera, and the guy standing right across from me, or sitting right across from me, he says, reportage? And I said, oui. And I took a bunch of pictures, and this is the one that I really liked from that. And I cherish this picture. And a lot of the traditional film pictures that I took way back when in like, this is after college in like the 80s and all that. But this is the oldest picture I'm going to show. The rest of them, I think, are all digital. What do I have next? Oh, yeah, that's in Italy. I have a friend, George Lang, who's very successful photographer, celebrity photographer, and it was one of the early trips where I was going back to Europe, and I wanted to shoot. I hadn't shot really in a long time anything worth any artistic merit of any kind or whatever. So I said, George, what the hell should I shoot? And he goes, it doesn't matter what you shoot. Just go and start turning around and taking pictures and whatnot. So this is in Florence. And by the Ponte Vecchio, by sunset every day, there used to be, before the world went dark, there used to be a huge scene of people gathering by the Ponte Vecchio and playing music and hanging out and looking for the sunset and all that. There were like hundreds and hundreds of people. So I was walking around the Ponte Vecchio and shooting pictures, and it was kind of boring, and I was twirling around and looking at the sunlight and the action and the music and whatever. And this is a picture that's around the corner from the bridge that I didn't even remember that I took until I came home and I looked through hundreds and hundreds of digital images. And there it was, this color image that I took one picture. There was only a moment where this happened. And I just thought it was like the perfect moment. Somehow this taxi cab and this woman and the people in the background and the signs and stuff. I just thought it was kind of like a little odd and mysterious. And it was just one of the great joys of photography is the unexpected. If you go in to photography preconceiving your pictures, you might get what you want, but they're going to be boring.
So, but she didn't get hit by that cab, right?
I don't know what happened after that. I honestly can't tell you. But
you snapped the picture and you ran.
Yeah, I don't know. How long did he follow her? Yeah, I snapped the picture and I ran. The Spanish Stairs in Rome. Romance, love, the city of, what do they call Rome? I don't know. But it's a very romantic place, and these people were just in the perfect. I was just walking around, and they caught the corner of my eye, and I just thought it was a very passionate moment.
Lucky they didn't see you.
Exactly. So there was, in Florence, in this main piazza, there was this big cathedral, and they had all these seats set up. There was going to be a concert or something going on at any time. And I just kind of waited around to, for the action to begin. And, you're in Italy, and this guy came out with the hand gestures, and I just thought it was, I like the whimsical side of people. So that's what I captured, the decisive moment. Henri Cartier Bresson, influenced me. Andre Cortez, Diane Arbus. This is in Venice. This piazza that was kind of beaten, a little, worn for the wear. It wasn't one of the beautiful polished marble ones. And this guy was kind of just sitting alone, playing these kind of somber tunes on his accordion, and these boys were kicking a soccer ball. And I don't know.
Well, that's more interesting than the beautiful ones, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'm drawn to, reality, real places more than anything else.
He's got his corner and nobody's going to take it.
Exactly. And it's like picture perfect. You have the little texture of the exposed brick, and I don't know. All right. This is an area in Rome called the Monte, and what a beautiful little wine bar this was. And this was, a shot that was only possible to take with by stitching together pano, because it was a very tight little space. So, but what a sweet little place that was, and I just love the building. It looks like a face or something.
It does.
And again, Florence, the beautiful, art and history of Florence. And I walked into a back alley, and I liked the mood, the quietness, away from the hustle and bustle of this kind of derelict alley with the bicycle sitting in it, and that white light of eternity winding in the background.
It looks like almost like a man-made version of a canyon out west.
Oh yeah,
Bryce Canyon or something.
Okay. This was the Duomo in Florence, and as you approach the Duomo, there are these really narrow alleys that you can just get glimpses of it, and just the geometry and all that was just something that I wanted to put like a puzzle together, and using as much depth of field as I could to meld the foreground elements and the background elements into one unified kind of a design. This was in Chamonix, France, up in the Alps, and we took a very long hike actually. This was another panoramic stitched together shot where we had my wife and daughter and I were walking down from a summit, not the summit. We went up to the summit in a gondola, and the altitude is unbearable unless you've trained for something like that. They have this beautiful, incredible observation facility up there that has all kinds of viewpoints and a cafe and all that stuff. But you feel like you're just nauseous after about 5 minutes. So we took the gondola to the second level down and walked the most beautiful trail down the mountain, where Stephanie fell off of a little wooded trail that all of a sudden I heard Sophie say, "Mom!" And I looked back and I just saw Sophie. And we were at like the edge of this like cliff. And I thought, oh my God. And we both ran back about 20 feet. And there was Stephanie on this little grassy ledge that, it wasn't like she would have like rolled down 1,000 feet if she hadn't landed all that. So fortunately, she was intact. And we regained our composure and walked down to the end of the trail, and this glacier was waiting, and it was just an unbelievable view of this glacier.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it was. And if we hadn't had a life threatening thing, we could have even walked down and in there. But it was a lot of physical walking and activity at that point. But it was just absolutely amazing. All right, let me move on. I love, I have just, I don't know what it is. I have this formal sensibility. Talk about Arnold Newman and how everything he does, has the formal sensibility to it and all that. I can't shake that out of my system. And one of the things that I'm going to show you in my more recent work is I'm trying anything I can to get rid of this formal sensibility that I am.
Well, maybe you shouldn't.
Maybe I shouldn't.
Well, if it's something that comes natural to you, why try to get rid of it?
Because I feel that it holds me back in certain ways. But no, you're right. No, I appreciate it. I do. And that's why I have this picture that somebody else may say, why did you take that picture of this house on this beautiful little island off of Venice? What's the name of it? Torcello. Really a cool place. You go to Murano and Burano, and they're full of tourists and whatever, and you get on the little ferry that takes you to Torcello, and it's just like these little canals and walkways, no people, not many people, and really phenomenal place. And something about this place just haunted me.
Those places are more fun. I mean, the tourist places, I stay away from that.
Right. No, of course. So that's why this picture.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you. This is in the area of Venice. What is the Jewish Quarter called? The Jewish Quarter. Let's call it the Jewish Quarter. And again, you had to. It was on the outlying parts of Venice that not as many tourists go to, and it just had a really rustic kind of a feeling about it. And these are all, again, these are digital pictures that I kind of I tweak them to look more like traditional kinds of photographs.
What do you find the biggest difference in, between film and digital?
Well, I guess you could use the analogy of vinyl and CDs. What's the difference? Vinyl has crackles and pops and just a really rich, real connection to the material. And
it seems like the tone is. I mean, if you're going to use that comparison,
yeah,
the tone, it just sounds different. To me, film is always richer than the digital.
Yeah. And it's funny because I went to, Sebastião Salgado had a show at the International Cinematography, God, it might be a decade ago. But, and his show was about like the world. He'd been everywhere. I mean, that guy, the life, he's one of my favorite photographers too. The life he's lived, to get the pictures he's gotten. I mean, there were pictures where he was like, he must have camped out in a rookery of penguins in Antarctica, to get the shot that he did. He had to be camping out there for a while, indigenous tribes in the Amazon, and, that you can't even find them. And he's, living with them. So I went to see this show, and the images were just unbelievable, and the scope of what he did and where he went was unbelievable. But I hated the digital. He pushed the digital look. He wanted it, I think, but I hated it. The skies and the clouds, the hardness to the clouds and the tones and the skies. All I could think of is like, that's a digital. It's so digital. It's so cold. I hated it. I hated the look of the digital. And so this is my answer to that somehow. You might not know that these are digital images just by what I do to them. if you see, I use vignetting sometimes on the edges darken. The tonal range in this area is very limited. And I wanted that to happen, and it picks up towards the center. So I have these great controls, but it's not screaming, this is a digital image. Oh, there's another one from up in the mountains. I love hiking up in the mountains above the clouds, wherever it is. It is just, it's like living a dream. I love that. Hey, look at that. Okay, great. We can move on to Ireland. You ready to go to Ireland?
Sure.
All right.
We're stuck in a house anyway. Might as well go to Ireland.
Cool. So what is the difference between digital and film? Well, in this picture, there was no horse. And, okay, little white lie. There's horse and cow shit all over there in this little town of Baltimore. This is called the, what is that thing called? It's like a lighthouse. It's like an early lighthouse without a light.
Wait a second. If it's a lighthouse, there's no light.
Right. It's a lighthouse without a light. It's a beacon. It's called the Beacon.
What, does it emit any kind of signal at all? And then...
No.
Is there any point to it?
Maybe you could see it from a ship, a couple hundred yards out, if you were in a bad way and socked in or something. I don't know.
Once you hit the rocks.
Once you hit the rocks, you can
see it.
You can see it. Something like that. And we went up there on this cloudy day to draw. I did a workshop with another artist in Ireland, and there's horse shit and cow shit all over there, and we did see some animals nearby, and so I took the shot, and I really wanted an animal to be there, so I found one somewhere else and put him there. What can I tell you?
It works.
I shouldn't have told you. Well,
yeah, I mean, most of the time there's no way to know, especially nowadays.
But that's an answer to digital. I mean, what you can do with digital that you might not be so easy with film. Although there are people that did it. Yulesman.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot more work, but
yeah. It's a lot. Just the textures and the mood of Ireland. So I don't have that many pictures of Ireland, so we get to move into my new work, and I'll show you how it's a departure. But Ireland has always been a very special place to me. It's a place that I never wanted to go to. I thought, why would anyone go there? They speak English. It's just green and cold and rainy. But when I worked in my commercial field, I used to do a trip with Parade magazine every year, where we go and bring 100 kids from all over the country as an incentive that Parade ran to promote the Parade magazine. And we went to Ireland a lot and developed some great friendships with some of the tour operators and stuff. And I grew to love Ireland. It's just a special place. The land, the people, the music. It's just phenomenal. And the moods that you see are unbelievable, and the light.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, that was a really hard angle to get of this. This is a very famous castle, Dungeness Castle, I believe it's called. And there's fences and rock walls and things like that. And I kept on going back to this I wanted a shot of this so badly. I needed that shot. I'd seen pictures of this place, and I wanted a great shot of it. And so we were there for an afternoon, and I kept on. racking my knees. Every half an hour I'd go back because the skies and the weather was changing by the minute. And I saw the sun was casting beams and the clouds were flying by, and I got this shot. That little puff of a cloud was there for maybe 30 seconds. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We went to this sheep farm, and I just saw this old weathered tree with the sheep wool hanging off the branches, and and again, just design, and balance, and positive and negative. And what can I tell you? Got to get back to Ireland.
Yeah, a lot of moody shots because the weather changes so much and so quickly that you get these beautiful clouds.
Yeah, and this line is light on the water. It's just, I don't know. We went to this place called Achill Island, which is like a little. You can drive on. This is actually like the bridge to it, and that was just. Again, off the beaten path, that place. It was where a lot of there's these famine houses, these ruins of famine houses, and it's one of the untouched places, in Ireland. I just loved it. So moody, so wonderful. Okay, so now let's look at what I've been doing recently.